Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hello, you're listening to the podcast, So There I Was. It's how all great aviation tales begin. This week's show, Flying the Bone, the B-1.
With Grease.
Number 106.
106.
And counting. Crazy, huh?
Yes.
This is awesome. And this was a fun week. I was particularly interested in hearing what else Grease flew, which was the U-2 spy plane, developed in the 1950s and still flying.
I know, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
You know, Grease has an amazing Air Force career. I think the part's amazing is he did a staff tour and he went away for a big school and he still got over 5,000 hours of flying.
Right?
I mean, he flew his ass off.
He really did. It's insane. 9 hours at a time in the U-2. Oh, my God.
Yeah, that was a real discussion about just the logistics involved. It's nuts stuff you just normally think about.
Right? And that's not just hopping in and going for 9 hours, and miserable as that is all by itself. You had to suit up into a spacesuit ahead of time.
Pre-breathe pure O2 for an hour.
Yeah,
right?
Before getting in. Yeah. Because here's why. This is cool stuff. They don't want you to get the bends. They're trying to get the nitrogen out of your system. So you breathe in pure oxygen because you're going up to a cabin altitude of 30,000 feet and airplanes well over twice that altitude.
For 9 hours.
Yeah, 9 hours in a single seat. You're not standing up and walking around and, trying to keep yourself hydrated.
Oh, by the way, if you need to scratch your nose, good luck with that.
Yeah, because you've got a space helmet on. And if you need to, fluid in, fluid's got to come out. We had a nice discussion about that, too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, boy. Hey, and you know what also I found very intriguing is he was really in the beginning stages of the B-1. He was like the fourth class ever.
Yeah.
Of pilots.
One of the first new guys that wasn't from another tactical community because he had gone in. What did he fly? T-39s and
Saber-Liners and Lears originally.
Yeah,
for VIP movement.
Made the transition to the Bone from there. A lot of talking about that airplane that I had not thought about before. From how they set alerts, how they delivered the weapons.
I know that's what shocked me, really.
Yeah.
let's don't ruin that part.
No. Hey, before we get out of the way and listen to Grease, let's take care of a couple admin things here. Fig, we've gotten some people who have thrown their money at us for unknown reasons. Thank you so much. We're humbled and honored.
As always. Oh, my gosh.
Right? One of our previous guests, Doc, may you remember him?
Doc.
Yeah, he sent us $100 through sotherewas.us/donate. We really are grateful for that. Thank you so much.
Hey, he's our favorite flight surgeon always, and I got to throw a birthday wish to him. Yesterday was his birthday, so happy birthday, Doc.
Oh, nice. Okay, so that would be May 3rd. Nice. And we have a new section lead on sotherewas.us/Patreon. Dennis Magic Bullet Connolly.
That's perfect. Not everybody's going to get that.
Google it. There was once a governor named Connolly from Texas.
He got hit with the magic bullet.
He got hit with the magic bullet. That's right. And then an apology goes out to one of our supporters, a gent by the name of Rick Mosley. I missed this, Fig, and I have no idea how. Humble apologies. He is a double tanker aircraft commander as of February. So somehow we missed that. And that's horrible. I'm sure sorry that we overlooked that. He is now a division lead with us on Patreon, but a double tanker aircraft commander. Very kind of you. We didn't mean to overlook you. That's horrible.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Rick Mosley.
Yeah. Hey, one last thing on the admin side. We're over 900 members now on our Facebook group. Let's make it 1,000. Send your friends over to our Facebook group, facebook.com/sotherewas.us. Also have a Facebook page. Follow us there. What do you think? Where should we go? What should we do?
Well, let's get out of the way and don't sit on it.
No, don't do it.
The ejection seat handle, that is.
Yeah, that's right. Because especially in the U-2, because you're heavier in the normal package there.
That's what he said, and I didn't think about it, but you're right.
All that extra gear.
True story about
all right,
crossing
folks.
the pond
Here comes Grease.
at night in the world's smallest cockpit on the tanker, through the weather. Oh, and to the tanker crew who did that, thanks a lot. We really appreciated that. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond.
Well, I gotta say it was an honor and a privilege to serve 20 years in the Air Force. I was lucky enough to fly for most of those 20 years. But throughout the career and the farther you get along, you have influences trying to get you out of the cockpit for career advancement. And a lot of bosses pushed me that way. I was kind of resistant to that. I wanted to keep flying. I finally had one of my commanders take me aside and say, hey, you need to do this, to advance. It's important work. Work the office, the dreaded staff job. It's not going to kill you.
It's just going to feel like it.
Yeah.
So stay in flying. That's how great aviation tales begin. Welcome, everybody. Repeat here, coming to you from New Hampshire today. Where's my co-host, Fig? Are you back home safe and sound?
I am back in Kearney, Missouri. Yes, thank you. And it is my honor and privilege to introduce our guest today, Greece. Welcome, Greece.
Nice. Air Force. What'd you guys do in the Air Force? Did you fly planes? Is that the...
Yeah, I stayed at nice hotels and flew planes.
Here we go. Per diem cash, per diem check cashing, 5-star hotel staying. Yeah, we know how it goes.
Yep. Gear up, check. Flaps up, check. Per diem, check. Awesome. Well, how'd you get started? What drove you towards the Air Force? What drove you towards the interest in flying?
Well, Chicago boy, grew up right under the final approach course for O'Hare when they're landing west. And just always had just a fascination with the planes flying overhead. Took my dad to O'Hare one time for a flight he was taking, and that was it. I was hooked. So, that was what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to fly airplanes. Had a couple of challenges along the way. Dad had 4 sons. He wanted all 4 sons to get into the field of engineering. He just thought, hey, there's money in it. You'll always have a job. So he pushed real hard for all of us to go that way. So
there you go.
Off I go to college, Southern Illinois University, and as an engineering student. It's difficult curriculum, especially when your heart isn't totally in it.
Right.
I lost that argument. And so the closest I could get while I was a student there initially was to join the skydiving club. So without telling my folks, I started jumping out of airplanes and had a great time doing it.
You do know that's dangerous, right? I mean, you can get hurt doing that.
Yeah, jumping out of perfectly good airplanes, but at least I was in an airplane for takeoffs anyway.
Yeah.
But anyway, the folks got wind of it and totally freaked out as expected.
Wait. I have to point out something that just went straight on by and right over my bald head. You said, "Well, I was in the plane for takeoffs."
Yeah.
Mostly. You were never in. You're never probably. Were you ever in one for a landing at that point? Or did you ever?
Not with a parachute out.
Okay.
Not with. Until my Air Force days.
So your takeoffs will never equal all your landings.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes, that is a fact. Anyway, we struck a deal between my parents and I that stopped jumping out of airplanes. Just so happened that Southern Illinois had a really good aviation program.
Okay.
And they agreed to chip in to get me started to get a private pilot's license while I was taking my engineering courses. So that was my first time really pursuing the aviation career, and got my private. Continued on. I was working on a commercial license, and it turns out it costs a lot of money to keep advancing and paying for all the flying. And I basically went broke trying to complete all the further flying, get my commercial license. And dejectedly, I had to stop flying airplanes at SIU. But one day, walking to my engineering classes, happened by the Air Force ROTC office. Go talk to these people. And so I went in, told them what my interest was. They were very interested in engineering students, and took some tests, scored real well on some of the kind of flying aptitudes. And so they said, hey, we can offer you one of our 4 pilot slots for the next class. And
dang. All right.
We're going to sign. It was just, I'm in.
Yeah.
So, that was kind of the start of it. Started the Air Force career and did the 2-year ROTC program.
Okay.
And did that as I was completing my mechanical engineering degree. And, went to my graduation in the morning and my commissioning in the afternoon at the end of it all.
Nice.
And then pilot training. Boom.
And then pilot training. So several months later, I went to Lubbock, Texas, Reese Air Force Base for my 1 year of undergraduate pilot training.
Okay. And would you fly there in order?
Yeah. So for the Air Force back then, the initial trainer was a T-37, the Tweets, flying dog whistle, they called it.
Right.
Whistling.
But basically a side-by-side, good acrobatic airplane, good formation plane, and good initial jet to kind of get you started. So that was about the first 4 months we were in the T-37. Then we transitioned into the T-38 Talon, which was supersonic tandem seating, a whole lot faster and, basically took you up to that next level.
So for those that aren't familiar, tandem means pilot front, pilot back, front and back, not sitting side by side. So yeah. And a slick, fast jet. In fact, I think that's what the NASA astronauts keep current in. I don't know if they still do. Okay.
Yeah, they do, and the Air Force uses them. They've used them for companion trainers. Like you had a B-2 up there, expensive, and they trying to fly that airplane more than they have to. So the pilots have the opportunity then to kind of keep their flying skills up by flying a T-38.
Okay.
We had the same thing in the U-2, which was nice. And basically check out a T-38 on the weekend and go wherever. Flew cross country and had a great time with that.
That's weird. They don't let you take a U-2 around all across countries? Huh.
Yeah. Attracts a little more attention than the T-38. But yeah.
So you don't wander into Bogalusa Regional in a U-2.
Don't mind the chase car. Yeah.
Right.
Hey, Grease. What year did you go to Reese for pilot training?
So that was class 8208. We started in September of 2000.
82.
Yeah.
81. Oh, of 81.
And then, the way they had them numbered, you graduated then in 82. So October of 82 is when I finished up.
October of 82 got winged. Nice.
Yeah,
okay.
Wings.
Now, did you go? Oh, go ahead, repeat.
I was going to say, think the same question. You out of flight school, you went to the B-1.
Actually, there was a stop along the way. I spent a little time flying the T-39 Saber-Liner.
Oh, no way.
I got 1,200 hours flying that, and then they transitioned to they call it the C-21, basically a Lear 35 that got time in that as well. And then from there was selected into the B-1 program as it was just getting going. I was the only kind of transport world pilot to go into the B-1 initially, so I was kind of an odd duck when I showed up.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Hey, let's go back to the Saber-Liner real quick. Was that a 40 or a 60? You remember?
It was a 40.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a 40. The original airplane was a Navy design. So
we had a couple of our guests were NFOs, and they got some training. Some of their training was sitting in the back of one of those.
Yeah, they did navigator training, I think.
And that was VIP transport, basically? VIP transport or precious cargo, whatever?
Yeah, mostly VIP. It had just kind of a minor aerovac role. Wasn't really equipped for it. The Lear Jet was actually better equipped for the aerovac mission.
And where?
But, very limited. Very limited.
Where were you based flying that, Grease?
Yeah, so I was based at Eglin Air Force Base in Fort Walton Beach, Florida.
That's a horrible place to have.
Tough duty, yeah.
Yeah, so that was my first experience. Hey, so this is the Air Force Officers Beach Club. Yeah, that was nice.
Do you feel those jabs that you get every once in a while repeat? You hear what every once in a while he just threw that out. Oh yeah, it was the office. It was the beach club, Officers Beach Club.
Yeah. We had that. Right, we got to sleep in the sand.
In Pensacola, right down the road.
Yeah.
So,
right. Very nice. And so what you threw you said that real fast. Did you say you had like 1,200 hours in the Saber in the
1,200 in the Saber-Liner, and I think I wound up with about 1,000 hours then in the Lear 35.
Wow, you guys flew your tails off.
Yeah, that was kind of a nice thing about it. And the Saber-Liner, no autopilot, and 1,200 hours in a non-autopilot airplane.
You're flying it.
That'll get your skills up.
Most of them had no radar, which being on the
on the Gulf Coast, surprise thunderstorms.
Oh my gosh! They called it the Crestview line. That's in summer afternoons. There'd just be a line of thunderstorms.
Oh yeah.
Work their way in on the shoreline, and you had to figure out how to get through that line with a liner that had no radar.
And what two words to strike terror in the heart of any pilot? Embedded thunderstorms.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, Grease. Is this because this was our technique? Maybe you guys might have had a little more refined technique, but we would fly if we couldn't stay VMC, if we couldn't stay out of the clouds. We tried to always steer towards the lightest part. Tried to stay out of the dark parts. Is that does that sound about right?
That's about right. You'd try to get controllers to help you out there. Back then especially, they had not the best information about weather from their radars, but they would do what they could with mixed results. But yeah, go for the light area was a good approach to start. And that didn't work. Turning around and doing what we call the end run, try to find the end of the line, just to get around to the backside. Did that numerous times.
The Lear was probably fancy. Radar, autopilot, right?
Autopilot. We were living the good life.
You bet.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
more speed, more altitude, and more equipment. So it was definitely a step up.
So how long were you there at Eglin doing that?
So I was at Eglin just about 4 years. It would have been 3, but I stayed a little bit longer when we transitioned into the Lear Jet.
Repeat. He flew 2,200 hours in 4 years.
Right.
That's a career worth of flying for a lot of guys. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. It did slow down after that point. So.
Now, admittedly, I fly cargo, so I don't fly as much as the passenger guys, but I don't think I've flown that much in 4 years at my airline.
Oh, God. All right. Well, I don't even want to go there. Let's not even talk about that.
Yeah.
Because both Grease and I fly people.
Yeah.
So, we can't even relate to what you're talking about.
Flying your backsides off.
Yes.
You guys have to do it, and we do what we call rig. But anyway, that's a whole nother thing.
So after flying,
how'd you wind up wandering over to the B1?
Yeah, let's hear that.
Well, time to leave, and had a commander that career advice was, was before they were saying get a staff job. They were saying he was a great boss. He said,
Okay.
It would be to your benefit to go fly something where you're dropping bombs or shooting bullets. It's like, yeah, it seems to be a better career path in the Air Force. So the B-1 was just coming online, and I technically qualified. I think the number of hours I had helped, but most of the initial cadre B-1 pilots were coming from either F-111s, FB-111s, or B-52s. And
Okay.
they had nobody from the Military Airlift Command, so no cargo pilots, which was the command I was in at the time.
Yeah.
So somehow I snuck in the door and was in kind of that initial group. We weren't the first class, but we were, I think, the fourth new hire class, or initial B-1 class.
All right.
And when I showed up, it's like, what are you doing here? It's like, but they took me under their wing, and it was a very steep learning curve to learn the bomb dropping business.
Okay. So where were most of the other guys coming from?
All over, a lot of B-52s, everywhere from Guam, Minot, North Dakota, Barksdale, Louisiana. Yeah. Let's see, the FB-111 guys were kind of in the Northeast. So that was kind of
all right.
The SAC version of the F-111. So,
and where was your B-1 training? Was that in?
Yeah, that was down in Abilene, Texas.
Yeah, okay.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Abilene. So Dyess Air Force Base.
Okay.
All initial training, and they had a operational squadron there as well.
Did you stay there, operationally?
I didn't. No. When we finished training, I went to the first additional B-1 base that opened up, which was Ellsworth Air Force Base in Rapid City, South Dakota.
Okay.
Okay.
Which that was great move. I wasn't sure what I was going to experience there, but I just loved South Dakota. Great location.
So would you guys, for just a normal training sortie, would you guys fly low levels and then pop up into the restricted area and do drops, or what's a training day in a B-1 look like? Yeah,
back then, because initially the airplane came online as solely a nuclear bomber.
Okay.
And this is back in the days, Cold War and sitting nuclear alert. So, all the weapons releases were basically low altitude releases.
Were they loft type releases?
No, the primary weapon was the B-83, which is it was the high yields nuke weapon at the time. Still is actually a 1.2 megaton parachute retarded, so you can get your butt out of there.
Did you say most of the releases were low altitude?
Yeah, so the B-1 had automatic terrain following, so we could just on the terrain following, hands off, fly at 200 feet, and the releases 0.95 Mach at 200 feet with the nukes.
What?
That is phenomenal.
What? Well, hold on. I'm trying to wrap my
hands off at 200 feet is what's blowing my mind.
I'm still trying to wrap my brain around that part. I'm down to 200 feet, and I'm not holding on to the controls. Is that it?
Yeah. So Bago's in the background doing some producing. So thank you. He's got a B-83 up on the screen now.
Yeah, that's it.
So
Big Bang. That's
B-83.
Big Bang.
Parachute high drag would come out, and doing 0.95 Mach, that gave you enough separation from the.
Yeah, and that's
on paper.
A bomb that's 80 Hiroshimas right there.
I don't know if I'd want to. It just doesn't seem like you're going to be far enough downrange when the thing goes bang.
Yeah,
I'm glad you never had to do that.
It was designed to withstand that.
Sure it was.
So, we had basically screens we would put up.
Hold on. Is that what they told you?
Yeah.
It's going to be fine.
Asking for a friend.
We thought this through. It's going to be fine.
The air we were breathing in the back, the guys had a switch. It was the nuclear filter.
Okay.
And supposedly that would take all the contaminants out. I always wanted to kind of go behind the panel and find out that thing's not really hooked up to anything.
Right.
Yeah, it's a dummy
That's
switch.
right. It either turned on the nuclear filter air or turned on the Christmas tree lights on the White House lawn. One of those two things in that switch.
It's like, we're okay. But it has some crazy things. There was these screens, kind of like a jigsaw puzzle, but you put screens up in the cockpit and completely blanked out any view of the outside. With the exception, there was a little porthole in front of each pilot, and you basically rigged up this glass window that would go into there that was powered. I still remember it was the Plizzit window, we called it, because it's lead, lanthanum, zirconium, titanate. Plizzit.
Well, that's what PLZT is. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
Platinum, lead, zirconium, titanate. Okay.
Yeah. The B-52 guys who had done the nuclear mission before, they would put on an eye patch. And so when there was a nuke flash in front of them, one eye would be fried, but you still had the one behind the eye patch to get the airplane safely recovered. But this was designed, and it was really pretty interesting because I had a guy show me, one of the technicians, that with the thing powered up, he took a strobe light looking through the Plizzit window. He said, just watch. And he hit the strobe. You could see the filament start to glow, but you never saw it flash.
Oh.
Basically, in the time it took that flash to go through the window, it just goes opaque.
Wow.
And then goes clear just like that. And you never see the flash. So,
Okay.
Okay, no kidding. Wow.
Nuclear filter and the Plizzit windows, we had nothing to worry about. Now, because the speed we were going, the bomb dropper in the back, our offensive systems officer, they would actually know when the shock wave would catch up to the airplane. It eventually would.
Okay.
And we'd be a pretty good distance down range before that thing caught up to us. So, the initial nuclear radiation effects.
I actually have a stupid question. I get why you have to be subsonic to let a weapon go, because you're opening doors on the airplane and all kinds of aerodynamic issues going on there, changing the configuration. But after a drop, would you reheat the afterburners and go supersonic, or?
We didn't. We burned a lot more gas, and when we were sitting alert, we basically knew all the targets, where we were going, what we were dropping on, and there was some tankers involved in getting there, but once you got into the threat area, with the plans, it was pretty close on the gas.
Okay.
So we could cruise 0.9, 0.95 Mach without the burners going, and when you lit the burners on a B-1, like for the takeoff at max burner, you were burning 360,000 pounds per hour.
Holy smokes.
You went through a whole lot of gas.
Oh, my God. By reference, folks, a large...
Wait, that's 6,000 pounds a minute.
Yeah.
That's 6,000
So, yeah, because by reference, a heavy airliner like a 747 or an L-1011, DC-10, something like that, 777, 380, they're burning in the order of 30 to 50,000 pounds an hour on takeoff when they're at full power and full weight. So 360,000 pounds an hour. That's incredible. Oh, and so for the non-pilots, it's 6.7 pounds for 1 gallon of gas. So I'll run the numbers here in a second, but that's a lot of gas.
Yeah.
And a lot of noise.
A noise converter, gas to noise converter, right?
Yeah, that's pretty
awesome.
awesome.
My God.
That was an awesome picture Bago just put up there. I don't know if you guys, did you see it? It was an underside view of, look at that. Look at the flames coming out of the back of the motors.
Oh, my God. So that's 53,731 gallons per hour. or 895 gallons a minute.
Hey, it's not important if you don't remember, but do you remember what the thrust rating on those motors were?
We're like in the 30 to 35,000 pounds per engine, max afterburner.
Okay.
So
wow,
it's essentially 120,000 pounds of thrust with all of them going. So.
Oh man, and not a bunch of drag on that airplane. It's a slick airplane, the B1. So.
Yeah, put the wings back. It became pretty streamlined when you put the wings back, and it's interesting design. A lot of lifting body effects when you're up at speed. Getting more lift from the actual body of the airplane than you were from the wings.
And what kind of duration would have been a typical mission in that?
Oh, the training missions we were doing 6.5 hours.
Oh my God.
We would spend 2 hours just in the traffic pattern, but typically we'd take off, cruise to a low level. From Ellsworth, we went. We had kind of a backyard one, but down by the Grand Canyon, there's some really nice low level routes we do.
Nice.
Typically, they'd be anywhere from 35 minutes to just under an hour at the low level.
Would you guys fly them at 420, 480? What kind of speed?
Oh, we'd fly them at like 0.95 Mach.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
No kidding. So right up at 600 knots and then some.
And it was a smooth airplane.
Yeah, and you're not hearing it coming. Not at 600 knots.
No.
Yeah, those kind of canard wings up on the nose of the airplane. They're not really canards because SMUX structural mode control system. They actually would oscillate at high frequency, and sensors on the airplane would basically tell them what to do to try to smooth the ride out. We thought it was for the crew. Now it was to prolong the life of the airplane. Try to get as smooth a ride as possible.
The heck with you guys. You're not coming back.
Yeah.
So, hey, Grease, is it two pilots and a systems operator, or what's a normal crew on a B1?
Yeah, so two pilots, and then about 10 feet behind them on the right side, we used to call him the offensive systems officer, basically navigator and the bombardier, and sitting next to him was the defensive systems officer, just a electronic warfare officer.
Okay.
Try to keep you from getting shot down.
So it's a crew of 4.
Crew of 4.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know, from my experience over in Afghanistan and Iraq, that airplane, I don't know if they added sensors to it later on in its life cycle, but the sensor suite on that airplane was amazing. They were using those airplanes as sensors more than they were dropping bombs when I was there anyway.
Yeah. When from the time it first came online, it eventually transitioned out of the nuclear role, and now it's just a purely conventional bomber. And initially, all we could drop was Mark 82s, but we could drop 84 Mark 82s, so we could drop a bunch of them, but
84.
Very limited. And that has improved significantly over the years, and since I left the program, they're carrying JSOW and JDAMs and you name it now.
Wow. 84. That's 42,000 pounds of bombage, conventional bombs.
Did you do that math?
And that picture is pretty interesting because three bays and carried 28 bombs per bay. You couldn't drop them all at the same time. It was actually Rube Goldberg stuff. You had to sequence the release for dropping all 84. And so one would drop from the front, and you could set the spacing, but 20 milliseconds, it was kind of the tightest drop. So after 20 milliseconds, bomb would drop from the middle, 20 milliseconds later, one from the aft. And basically, if you see it in super slow motion, it's like, oh, man, who came up with that?
So it does. Yeah. It appears they just open up and everything falls out, but really there's a method to the madness, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
scientific method.
I think I think it was 1.6 seconds you could drop all 84, and that was a 100-pound bomb every 25 feet or something. You know?
Oh, yeah, that's putting him down, right? Repeat. Huh?
Right. Yeah, that's laying some steel down. Build your own, cut your own path for a highway or a runway.
I was feeling pretty good taking off with 12 Mark 82s under my wings, thinking I was somebody. Well, now I feel that. Now I've got,
little inferiority
I'm
complex.
having a complex.
84.
I'm getting a grip on this. I'm looking at you a whole different way now, Grease.
Well, I'll tell you, there was a big learning curve, though, to go from, flying by yourself and, with the nukes and, flying the packages and learning. It's a whole different world of conventional stuff.
What was the hardest part? Was it the boredom, the sitting on alert? And
that got old.
Yeah.
We would sit.
And did you do that in the jet, or did you do it in the hangar next to the jet?
No, there was on the far side of the airport. The
alert
main
guys.
part of the base there. It's, Ellsworth was the alert area, so they had a special ramp. Ellsworth, we had not only the B-1s, but we had tankers, and we had EC-135s. So that part of the looking glass, basically get the National Command Authority up in the air and the ability to launch missiles from the air. So they had a whole bunch of airplanes parked there in the alert facility. We would do Wednesday to Wednesday, a week at a time, where you would come on alert and relieve the guys, the airplane you're taking. And you were basically, your 4-person crew was joined at the hip for the whole week. You had a vehicle, you could drive around to the other side of the base, and you had your TAN radios that you carried with you everywhere. And the base was set up, if worst came to worse and they had to launch the alert force, there would be lights come on all over every building, every street. Had lights come on. Everybody knew to get off the road because here comes the alert crews. And, no speed limits. You just get your airplane as quickly as you could. The airplane was designed for this, and there was first person to get to the airplane. There's a button on the nose you hit, which dropped the ladder. It started, there's APU in each engine cell, so 2 APUs would crank up. You'd go running up the ladder. It would bring on the generators, cooling air, everything you need, hydraulics. And basically you got in the seat. You could start all 4 engines simultaneously, and the airplane was all cocked and ready to go. And you could be taxiing within minutes.
Wow.
Once you got to the airplane.
How about that, Repeat? That's pretty awesome.
They would actually exercise that usually once a week for the crews. And the wing commander always wanted, this is a bunch of airplanes with nukes on them. He wants to be right there to watch it happen. And but word would get out that there might be alert here coming up here this morning, and I don't know. Some people look forward to that because that was an exciting ride. To tearing into around the base, and it's probably the fun part of it. So
now,
there's a whole process you went through to actually allowed you to get to the airplane. But that was kind of the highlight of the week.
Yeah, they got to make sure the right people are getting in the airplane to fly it, huh?
Yeah.
Now, Grease, did you guys deploy as a unit? Or did you do everything from Ellsworth?
In the nuke days, we never deployed.
Okay.
And that was a new thing as we transitioned over to conventional. So, basically, for a bunch of years, every takeoff and landing I did was from Ellsworth Air Force Base. And then eventually I got assigned down at Abilene at the schoolhouse at Dyess Air Force Base. But
so you went back to Dyess to be a IP?
Yeah, yep. And so training the new people, and worked in the pilot academic branch for a short time. I was the head of pilot academics for teaching everybody who came through, instructors, new students, the VIPs, general officers that wanted to get checked out in the B1. We had a program for them.
All right, I got a silly systems question. Well, really, not really a system. Well, I guess it is sort of a systems question. The B1, did that have an escape capsule, or was it 4 separate ejection seats?
Yeah. The test versions of the airplane, the B1A, there was 4 B1As that were built, and in the B1A, it was a capsule system, so similar to the F-111, where the crew ejects together. In the B1A, all 4 crew members were in a capsule, and the capsule ejected with all of you. They lost 1 airplane in testing. Rockwell lost their chief test pilot, Doug Benefield, because the capsule separated successfully. They were doing a center of gravity test, and basically the fuel transfer that should have kept the center of gravity where it needed to be was not actuated. The airplane pitched up out of control, and they ejected. Capsule came out of the airplane, and the big chutes opened, and it was appeared to be a successful ejection. However, the capsule's pointed nose down. It was designed to explosively fire to release the capsule so that it's now bottom down with impact bags on the bottom of the capsule, and which cushioned the landing and made it survivable. Well, those explosive bolts failed to fire, and so the capsule wound up hitting nose first attitude. And Doug Benfield's seats basically failed. He went up the rails and was killed in the impact.
That's a slow death when you're gracefully falling in a parachute.
Yeah,
watching the Earth come up slowly. Shit.
Oh my, yeah.
Okay, so
after that, they elected to not go with the capsule system. Then when they went with the B1B,
okay,
so they basically just went to a 4 seats ACES 2 ejection system.
Okay, and everybody goes up, or does somebody go down?
Everybody goes up.
Okay.
Sequenced, you could be in automatic mode where if either the pilot selects their handles, it starts the sequence where the DSO, back left, goes first, followed by the OSO, followed by the first officer, the co-pilot, followed by aircraft commander. And, rapid sequence.
Bang, bang, bang. Yeah.
Bang, bang, bang. And that was automatic mode. And then you could, basically our checklist would have us for a lot of the cruising and most of the stuff we did, we'd be in manual mode. So each pilot is his own decision maker.
Oh, right. Okay.
Do you know anyone that successfully ejected from a B-1?
Yeah. Actually, when I went back to the schoolhouse, I shared an office with another B-1 pilot who had been in the first crash of one of the B-1Bs. They were flying training mission in La Junta, Colorado, low level, and they believed that they hit a turkey vulture, traveling at 0.95 Mach. And, the golden BB they talk about that this bird hit in exactly the wrong point.
Of course.
The airplane, even the windscreen, that's a lot of airplanes, you hit a bird in the face, at 0.95 Mach, he's going to come through. But design of the B-1 for high speed, low altitude, the engineers tested the windscreen and designed it to be able to withstand bird impacts. So
yeah.
They had the chicken cannon that the engineers were shooting at first live chickens into the windscreens in testing.
No animal was harmed in the filming of this test.
Yeah, the live birds.
They were volunteers. They weren't
right.
forced into it, as far as we know.
Yeah, what's the last thing that went through his mind?
Yeah.
It was this chicken asshole. Oh my gosh! So did they take Did they take one in the window?
Yeah.
I mean, for real?
No, so they actually took one just below the wing, and there was about a 8-inch gap before the engine nacelles, and there was basically a little couple pieces of metal, just V-shaped, coming at you like this, and it hit right at that little piece of sheet metal. Well, turns out right behind that little blocker was 4 hydraulic lines, one for each of the 4 hydraulic systems.
Of course.
Oh,
Can't isolate those.
Yeah. So the bird wound up taking out all 4 systems, and they rapidly lost control. They came out of the low level, and at that time you could have 2 instructors on the airplane. There was an instructor pilot seat that flipped down, and a instructor
In the back.
weapons systems officer in the back. Same thing, just a seat that would flip down. Non-ejection seats. So for them to get out of the airplane involved getting out of those seats, putting on a parachute, opening up hatch on the bottom, lowering the ladder, which acted as a wind block, and then basically rolling out of the bottom of the airplane.
what?
Yeah, in theory, you could get out of the airplane that way.
Can you imagine that Fig sitting there and go,
no.
hey, where'd they go?
No.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
Oh, my God.
Unfortunately, this particular accident, the 2 instructors, there was not time before they completely lost control of the airplane. They were not able to get out. And then the 4 ejection seats, my office mate was sitting in the front left seat, and his instructor in the right seat. His ACES 2 ejection seat failed. A couple of the AND gates
Oh shit!
malfunctioned, and so he was one of the 3 fatalities in that accident.
Oh.
Oh, so how many successfully got out of that plane?
So the other 3 ejection seats, him and both of the backseaters, they were able to get out.
And then there was two instructors in those
2 instructors
those flip
and
down
the command pilot.
instructors.
Oh shit!
Yeah, and then the instructor in the right seat did not get out.
Wow.
So,
Oh.
Wow, that's rough.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we
All from a 3-pound turkey buzzard, but the force of
Yeah.
that, at 600 knots, that's a real
you talk
force.
about 15-pound birds, going 600-700 miles an hour. That's like a bowling ball at 700 miles an hour.
Oh, that's just terrifying. And of course, it hits the only truly vulnerable spot on the airplane.
because why wouldn't it?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I did nighttime low level. Something hit the airplane while we were flying, and we came out of the low level and 15,000 feet, leveled off, and it's like, okay, everybody check, look around, see if any problems, and engines are running fine, everything seemed fine, and I had my flashlight and just kind of looking around, and I noticed some streaks across the side window. Flash to the front and smack at my face. Obvious impact point where a bird had hit the windscreen.
Wow.
That would have been your
Your
beak.
Yeah. So the chicken gun. Thank you to the engineers there.
Yeah.
So thank you to all those chickens that volunteered to do the
Yes.
testing.
Right.
Well, how many hours did you end up in the bone there, Grease?
So the Bone had a little over 2,000 hours in the B1.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So that was actually most of my career was in the B1.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, hold on. You said when you were when you were flying the B1, so you didn't really. So proficiency wise, you were flying around a T-38 also while you're flying them, right?
Well, see, the B1 we did get before we started training a couple of T-38 rides, but it was not until the U-2 that we had the T-38 companion training.
I
Gotcha.
misunderstood. Excuse me.
Yeah, the B2, those guys do have the T-38 companion.
Okay.
Wow,
All
2,000
right.
hours in the bone. All right, so so you did that for how many years? How many years were you there?
Yeah, so B1s about 8.5 years total in the B1.
Nice.
That's good.
All right.
That's awesome, man.
Before we move on to the U2, let's take just a minute and say thank you to the folks over at Flight Training International, FTI.
Hey there, aviators. It's Fig and Repeat, your co-host from So There I Was, the show where we share all the wild aviation stories and maybe even a few tips and tricks along the way.
That's right, Fig. And speaking of tips and tricks, let's talk about something every aviator contemplating the leap into commercial airline flying has to face: getting that airline transport pilot rating, the ATP.
The good old ATP rating. Remember those days, Repeat?
Ooh.
Getting your ATP with an FAA examiner in a piston engine plane that smelled like 100 low lead in somebody's old socks. You've never been inside of it before, let alone flown it.
Right? Those were crazy days. But you know what? Our friends over at Flight Training International have cracked the code on making this transition to getting your ATP or type rating way easier.
Founded in 1991, these guys have been helping pilots like us navigate the tricky waters of transitioning from military to commercial flying, or from commercial multi-engine rating to the PhD of flying the coveted airline transport pilot rating. And get this, FTI was originally founded to provide type ratings to pilots eyeing jobs at Southwest Airlines.
And talk about experience. The current owners have over 37 years of aviation under their belts. They've flown operationally in both the U.S. Navy and the Air Force, and they've been training pilots like us for the last 25 years.
And they've got an impressive list of clients, from the Air Force and Navy to FedEx, United, and even government agencies. These guys are the real deal.
Oh, absolutely, Fig. And they specialize in helping pilots just like you and me transition smoothly into the airline world. Whether you need an ATP CTP, which is what Congress mandated 10 years ago to even be allowed to take the ATP written exam, or an ATP rating or a type rating, they've got you covered.
And here's the best part of all, folks. They're VA approved. That's right. Veterans, you can use those benefits to make your transition even smoother.
Nice. Oh, and let's not forget about their instructors. These guys are active and retired airline pilots, many of whom are veterans themselves. No 300-hour wonders here, just seasoned professionals who know the ins and outs of flying airliners.
Plus, their training materials are top-notch, all iPad-based, so you can study at your own pace, wherever you are. And their courseware includes everything you need to succeed, from manuals to sample orals.
And get this, Fig, their footprints are designed to require minimum time on site, so you can save your leave for terminal leave instead of spending it all in training.
That's awesome. So what are you waiting for, aviators? Don't waste your time with some designated examiner in a light twin. It smells like socks and 100 low lead. Head over to FlightTrainingInternationalRatings.com. That's FTIRratings.com. And tell them you heard about them on So There I Was for a $100 discount on any course you choose.
That's FTIratings.com for all your aviation training needs. Remember, when it comes to making the leap into the airline world, Flight Training International has your back. Grease, let's talk about how it is that you wound up leaving the bombing, the strategic.
The cushy lifestyle of the B-1 bomber.
Yeah.
And
the beach club, the South Dakota Beach Club.
Swimming pools, movie stars.
Yeah.
So what happened then? How do you get into the U2 program?
I left the schoolhouse down at Dias. I was selected to go to Fort Leavenworth. I spent a year at Fort Leavenworth. No, in the schoolhouse, not the jailhouse. It was a one-year Army school. This was, again, commander's career. You need to do this. And it was a great year. One year at Fort Leavenworth, learning about the Army and an awakening. I had a whole new appreciation for what they all do. But during that year, it was the Command of General Staff College. The natural progression after that would be to go to the staff job. You're kind of being trained for it. Again, I didn't feel inclined to do that. I wanted to continue flying, Going back to the B1 would have been difficult because their expectation was for me to continue my journey to be the next Air Force Chief of Staff. But a friend of mine had flown the U-2, and just kind of commiserating with him, he said, "Hey, why don't you put in for the U-2? It's an application process. You apply. It's an airplane that's you don't get right out of pilot training. They want someone with a little time before flying. It's got a notoriously difficult airplane to fly.
Okay.
It's like, hey, I can keep flying. I do this. So while at school at Fort Leavenworth, I put a package together and applied for the U-2. To my surprise, I was offered an interview to come out and spend time at Beale Air Force Base in
Northern California.
Just north of Sacramento, California. But basically, you go out and you interview. You meet every squadron pilots. You meet everybody, schedulers, all the way up to the wing commander. Process. It's kind of an honor just to get invited out for the interview. But any person you meet has veto authority over you getting hired. So.
You got to be on.
Basically being scrutinized every step of the way. They, let's see, what else do they do? They want to know if you have any problems wearing the spacesuit that you have to wear in the U-2. So they would actually rig you up and put you in a U-2 spacesuit, the David Clark 1034, and basically have you sit for half an hour and just lazy boy recliner.
Breathing oxygen. Claustrophobia issues with.
Yeah, and they kind of left the room or appeared to. They said, "Hey, if you're freaking out, raise your hand and we'll come and get you." But if you've got claustrophobia, that's not the plane for you. And they have had people decided, no, it's not for me, just at that point in the interview.
Well, you can't even scratch your nose, during.
Yeah. Yeah, for 9 hours. Oh.
Now, we know that the Blue Angels, when they're interviewing their prospective new hires, they invite them to the beach, and they what the hell? What the hell time
tolls,
is it?
Fig? It tolls for me.
Yeah.
What the hell was that?
My fault, I'm afraid.
All right, okay. Okay, no worries. I was like, am I hearing things? Okay. So, I'm assuming that at some point they had you in some skivvies and wanted you to walk around. They want to see, if you had nice legs and that sort of thing, and how you looked, and not when you're not in your spacesuit. Was that part of the process? Don't lie to us, because we'll find out.
Not to the level of the Blue Angels, but there's got the squadron, nice little social area, and
so it sounds like it's a pretty tight knit group, and they want to make sure they don't hire an asshole.
Yeah, they really they do a great job. Their hiring process.
Nice.
We had a bunch of great people. The interview process culminated, though, with the 3 interview rides in the 2-seat U-2.
Okay.
So that was really kind of make or break whether you're going to get invited to.
Okay, so what's that like? What you said interview ride? So are you just doing pattern work, or do you do pattern work in a U-2?
Yeah, you actually do, because landing is probably the hardest part of the airplane. It is a really difficult airplane to land.
So, but always touch and goes, right? Because your outriggers fall off on takeoff.
Yes.
Okay.
So, you're trying to keep wings from dragging since you don't have the logos in anymore, which is kind of a learned skill. But for the interview ride, they don't expect, in 3 rides, you're going to be able to even land the airplane by yourself. I had a fair number of hours going into it, and I could have no more landed that airplane the first 2 rides without that instructor evaluator on board. It was humbling. I was a puddle of sweat in the seat after each one. But they're more looking to see if you're trainable, and if you're making
Right.
improvements with each ride.
Did you go up to
Nice.
altitude?
Fortunately,
Did you go up to
it's not
altitude on the training?
No, because you haven't been
Okay.
trained in the pressure suit at that point. The first takeoff just demonstrate what the airplane can do. The evaluator did the takeoff, and we're fairly lightweight because we're not flying a full mission, but we blasted off, leveled off at 10,000 feet, and he said, "Look out the window." And we hadn't gotten to the end of the runway yet. It was eye-opening. The airplane likes to fly and climb.
Yeah. Well, there's some serious lift on that. That's a high aspect ratio wing that it's just it just wants to fly. Looking at that thing.
Looks like a glider.
Yeah.
Looks like a glider.
Yeah, it makes gliders look weak.
Yeah. As it kind of looks like a glider, with a jet engine. But some of these high performance gliders now, beyond the U2.
Yeah.
Although it'll glide a long way. Does not want to come down from altitude.
Okay. And what is that about a third of the way out the wing? Are those tanks? Fuel tanks?
Those are called superpods.
Okay.
So the initial airplanes, back when the CIA was flying them, and first flight was 1955, and they did not have those superpods.
Okay.
The airplane was quite a bit smaller. The initial C-1 airplanes or CIA airplanes, but they added those superpods. Basically, it's a way to put all kinds of different sensors and
Gotcha.
mostly the signals,
Electronic
collection.
countermeasure signals collection.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
And they can tailor it for whatever mission you're flying. When it all is loaded in superpods.
Okay. And is it twin or single engine?
Single engine.
Okay.
Single engine, and for the takeoff, you basically after your chase car does a circuit around the airplane, gives you a thumbs up. You run the engine up to 80% while standing on the brakes. You have a certain point that you hold the yoke, release the brakes, and you just shove the throttle to the stop, and you don't touch it again for 9 hours. You run a 9-hour mission at full.
9 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Oh my God.
How about that?
Yeah.
Wow. So, all right, hey, let's back up a little bit here. So you talk about the chase car, going around the airplane and all that, but maybe I'm even still too far ahead. I want to learn more about the training process and all that at some point here. Mm-hmm. But why a chase car? I glossed over it briefly about losing your outriggers on takeoff and that sort of thing. Can you describe all that in the U2, what the takeoff process is like? And I'm assuming the chase car gets those outriggers. Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, there's actually a crew that comes out, four people in a pickup truck that they grab the pogos after the takeoff.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a horrible airplane to taxi out. Without those pogos, the wings would be dragging on the ground as you taxi out.
Because they're full of fuel, right?
They're full of fuel.
Yeah.
The turn radius, depending on how the winds are, if the winds are favorable, your turn radius is 189 feet. So you can't turn the airplane inside a football field.
Yeah.
If the winds aren't favorable, that goes up to about 300 feet. So you're doing good to turn the airplane within 2 football fields. So, taxiing it out is real interesting. And with those pogos out there, on occasion, there's not sufficient room for both pogos to be out. And so it was not unusual to taxi with one pogo removed and a couple of guys laying on the wing, the other wing, to try to...
to counterweight it. Okay. Because a little while ago, Chase had a picture up of guys, it looked like they were pushing the wing up.
Yeah. So those guys are reinstalling. That's probably after a landing.
Okay. So they're reinstalling the pogos on an empty wing holding up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
So that's one of the steps upon landing. You come to a stop. Usually you settle on one of the wings, and they'll come out, basically lift the down wing and get a pogo in there.
So it is. I was told one time, and not by a credible source. So now you can correct me. The guys in the chase.
I wasn't
credible.
talking about you, my friend. The guys in the chase car, are they squadron pilots or are they ground crew guys, or who does that?
Yeah. So for mission, we would do all our mission planning the day before, and there's the mission pilots, and there was the backup pilots. The backup pilots was also going to be the mobile the next day. So the mobile officer is basically the eyes and ears for the guy in the spacesuit, because you it's a busy morning, busy pre-takeoff routine that you go through. You show up about 2 hours and 15, 2.5 hours before the mission. You get a physical. You have a meal. They would give you a high protein, low residue meal to get you through 9+ hour mission. And get intel brief, weather brief, and then the mission pilot would have to go and get suited up. He would have his mobile officer, the backup pilots, go out and pre-flight the airplane and basically set up all the mission materials in the airplane, set up the cockpit how he liked. You had bottles of water and Gatorade. People had different ways they liked everything set up in there. But the mobile would basically go out and prep the airplane while the mission pilot was getting suited up. And he was required then, he or she, to pre-breathe pure oxygen for an hour before the takeoff. Just denitrogenate your body and some of the physiological effects of flying at that altitude.
So you're not getting the bends.
So you're not getting the bends.
Wow.
You got the spacesuit on. The cabin is at 30,000 feet. So you're flying a mission.
That's a couple atmospheres, yeah.
Yeah, you're at top Mount Everest for 9 hours.
Whoa. So, all right. So you got bottles of water, bottles of Gatorade, that sort of thing. Is there a tube through the helmet the straw, or okay?
Yeah.
Or can you open that visor when?
No, once you're buttoned up, that's it.
Okay.
And which you mentioned it, you get an itchy nose. It's like, oh man. But there was a little port on the helmet that with basically a one-way flapper valve.
Okay.
The water bottles, just a quart plastic water bottle that had a long straw on it, and you would feed that straw through the port, which allowed you to drink water and scratch your nose with that same straw.
There you go. Give me that straw.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so what goes in must come out. And I know people are going 9 hours without taking a piss. Come on.
Yeah. And it was important.
Got to ask. Sorry.
Yeah. It was important to stay hydrated. It was a real dehydrating environment. You're breathing pure oxygen.
Sure.
And so basically you had to drink at least one of those bottles per hour. And what goes in must come out. And part of the suit up process, you would basically put on long underwear. For the guys, it's a urine collection device, basically a giant condom that you'd be hanging out of your long underwear as you came out for suit up. And, very professional 3-person crew that got you suited up. But
you had to very professional. You had to put that up. Okay, who's touching the penis? Well, it's going to be this professional today.
Who drew the short straw to hold the short straw?
Somebody's got to pull it through. Who's it going to be? I'm glad you. Yeah.
So there I was crossing the pond.
Greece was very specific about professionalism, because that's right.
That's right.
This is a tender area, ladies and gentlemen, very tender.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the urine collection device, there was basically a hookup, a hose that went into the suit. There was a valve on the leg, zipper pocket. And coming from that valve, then the tube came out and went into a little catch cup right on the control yoke. And the tank underneath, captured the urine. It was kind of a learned skill how to pee in a U-2, because to do it, you had to open that pocket and open the valve, and you could actually pressurize the suit to basically get airflow going.
Okay.
And then you had to learn to pee really slow. So it took some practice, and you always hoped at that moment you wouldn't have a rapid depressurization because, bad things, man. But you got pretty good at it, and so it was kind of throughout the mission.
Okay.
Take in water and smell water.
And then autopilot?
Yeah, and with autopilot.
Decent autopilot? Okay.
Yep.
That helps so you can concentrate on other business.
So the cabin.
Yeah. I just had one UCD incident happened to me, though. One of my first missions, I was reaching back, which you were not supposed to move very much for releasing nitrogen bubbles, but I reached back to grab a Gatorade bottle, and I felt the UCD go boop about 2 hours into a 9-hour mission. It's like,
Wait, what part of it?
So it came off of me.
Oops.
Yeah. No, I mean, how far into the mission?
2 hours.
About 2 hours.
2 hours.
So you're not going to abort the mission, and so I got to stay hydrated, and it's kind of a bad feeling as your suit is filling up with urine, and eventually you kind of got used to it.
All right.
They could recover the suit after.
So Bago has a picture up right now, and that actually looks like a pretty tiny cockpit to spend 9 hours in.
It's small. It's bigger than the original airplanes. They could actually not wear a full pressure suit. The original CIA guys flying over the Soviet Union, they had a partial pressure suit because the cockpit was just too small for a full pressure suit.
Wow.
When they came out with the U-2R, re-engined, much bigger, they made it a point to make the cockpit big enough that you could accommodate a full pressure suit.
Okay.
So, but it's small, and
Are there anthropometric requirements? Like you can't be taller than a certain, height and fit in.
You must be at least this tall to ride this ride.
You can't be taller than this to ride this ride.
I never saw a number. We did have one of our U-2 pilots. He was a big guy, and he said basically, when they lowered the canopy, he could basically barely fit a finger between his top of his helmet and the canopy. We did probably one of the pilots. He had a huge head, and basically trying to fit him up with the spacesuit helmet. He said that's as big as a head could be and fit in this thing.
Biscuit head.
His wife said, just like your kids.
So
another story.
Recent, I think you said average. Was it average mission like 9 hours? Is that what you said? 9 hours?
Yeah, depending on where you were. When I was on Cyprus, we had some missions that were closer to 5 hours. Korea, almost everyone was 9 hours.
Okay.
Usually middle of the night, take off at sunset and land a little bit before sunrise.
Wow.
So not only were you high, invisible to radar, invisible to the naked eye, coming and going, and were you? And some of this you may or may not be able to talk about. Were you generally traveling distances, or were you pretty close by and orbiting, or were you doing straight lining reconnaissance or orbiting reconnaissance, or both?
We did both.
Okay.
We had a mission on Cyprus. It's been going on for 50 years. We're having the 50-year anniversary, actually, in July. I'm head back out there. And basically, from the Arab-Israeli war, the part of the ceasefire agreement was that the U.S. would provide imagery of the entire Sinai Peninsula to both sides. Our photo interpreters would basically look at it and determine how much military hardware that was across the Sinai Peninsula. And kind of like Korea, there was a green line that you could only have certain equipment within such a distance of that neutral zone and the green line.
Okay.
And basically that mission was just back and forth with a wet film camera to map the entire Sinai Peninsula in 4.5 hours. But so that was one where you're back and forth, plowing the field.
Yeah.
Some of the Iraq missions were more just going all over the country.
Okay.
Some of them, I can't really talk about.
Yeah, I understand.
It was a variety.
Well, and then, so what kind of altitude and speed were you at? And I think I know the answer to this, and I never really thought much about it till tonight. Once you're above the tropopause and the jet stream, there much wind up there, or is it pretty still?
It can be turbulent, surprisingly.
Okay.
The wind is not much because you're above troposphere and so like jet streams, you're pretty good distance above that. But you could, there were some places that were notorious for some very turbulent air.
Interesting.
Korea was one. Got over the Sea of Japan at altitude, it could get really very turbulent. We lost an airplane in turbulence there one night.
Oh.
And, the airplane and a pilot. That basically airplane broke up. It's kind of a delicate airplane, and you go too fast or too slow, bad things happen.
Yeah.
And you had experience in Korea with basically, getting into that kind of turbulence where the airplane is getting close to stall. That's bad. Push over and get the speed back, but going too fast in the airplane is, as bad or worse than a stall.
So what?
Basically, the downforce on the tail.
What kind of window are you talking about between high and low speed there when you're at your altitude? It's not very much, right?
Well, not much. The original airplanes, it was like 4 knots. The CIA guys were flying when they built the U-2R with the bigger airplane, expanded, and so more like 7, 8 knots that you had through your window.
So and just as a refresher, because we got a guy that Colin McCann just typed in, no auto throttle because you took off. You said you took off with the thing at full power and you never pulled the throttle back until you came down, right?
Yeah. So you were basically climbing the entire mission as the airplane got lighter. It was a really good autopilot, and you just set up Mach hold. It's about 7.2 Mach usually. And you would basically just let the airplane continue to climb as it got lighter at 7.2 Mach. And, so you're climbing until it's time to come down. And at that point, you go from full throttle to idle. You're up above 70,000 feet, and you put the landing gear down, and you put the speed brakes out. And even with all that drag out, it's better part of an hour to get down.
There's no air up there, so it's probably laughing at you at that point when you pull, the gear and speed brakes and drag, whatever. It's referred.
Yeah, there's not a lot of.
Right. Well, they're all spread out.
So, yeah. So, can you say what altitude that airplane will go to, or is that still classified?
It's still classified, but it's still, they say above 70,000 feet, and you got above 70 fairly quickly, and kept going after that.
So I remember my first cross country when I was a student in a 152, went down to Thibodaux, Louisiana, and they had it had been a U-2 base there. It had a 12,000 foot runway. Was that for a full weight takeoff? Did you need that kind of concrete?
Not for takeoff. Okay. Even
it was for landing.
Fully mission loaded airplane, you'd be off in a few hundred feet. There's no rejected takeoff procedure because you're just a passenger. Like I said, you have the yoke at a certain position. When you release the brakes, you're just waiting for it to get those few hundred feet. And
now that you say that, I realize what a stupid question that is, because you said on your first ride, you look down at 10,000 feet from the end of the runway. It's like, okay.
Yeah, it pretty much leaps off the runway. But landing, you do need the distance for landing.
Okay.
Airspeed control, very important. We practice. That's why beating up the pattern was pretty important to get
Sure.
good at landing. The chase car really came into play for landing the airplane.
Okay.
Because after a 9-hour mission, you're tired. Vision is with the spacesuit, your peripheral vision is not good.
Okay.
Some of the sensors had a very long nose, looking off, out the front window, not very good either. And landing the airplane, you had to do it right. You had to stall it on every single landing. So you would come in, and from about 1.5 to 2 feet, you held it off until it touched down. But every knot of airspeed, you probably experienced, an airplane just doesn't want to touch down.
Yeah.
This airplane definitely does not want to touch down if you got any extra speed. So the mobile comes into play. He would actually, we started with Mustangs, then we had 300 horsepower Camaros. As you come into land, your mobile basically does a rejoin on you, and he's behind you, one hand on the wheel, one on the microphone, and gets right behind you and talks you down. Just
last several feet, 5, 4, 3.
Yeah, basically you have a call as you come across the threshold, and then picks you up to 10 feet, and about every 2 feet. So you're at 10 feet, you're at 8 feet, and talking now to 2 feet. You can tell how the speed control is. If the tail wheel is well above the main, he's got too much speed.
Too fast. Okay.
Yeah, and as the tail wheel, kind of the bottom of the tail wheels come even with the main wheel, you're getting ready to stall the airplane. So really important to stall it, tail wheel first and then main gear. And so, typical call would be something like, okay, you're at 8, 6, 4, 2, 2, 2, hold it off, 1.5, hold it off. And also any crab, because you're 2 points. You got the main wheel and a couple of little skateboard wheels in the back. And if you have any crab in, you are off on Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. You may or may not keep the airplane on the runway.
So there is no, you don't land in crosswinds.
Very limited. 15 knots of crosswind to keep the nose pointed out of the runway. You had the rudder to the floor, absolutely to the stop.
Oh my!
And so, if you're out on mission, the wind's kicked up, it could get real interesting. There was a procedure that, if you got to land in excess of 15 knots of crosswind, there's actually titanium skids on the wingtips. And in a pinch, you could actually lower the wing. So instead of 2 points, you've got 3 points.
Okay.
And been done more than once to get an airplane on the ground.
And then keep it on the concrete. Wow.
So once you're on the ground, eventually the wing stops flying and you're going to drop a wingtip. Does the chase car come up and do you put the wingtip on the car, or do you just let it hit the ground, or how's that work?
Yeah, so you bring it to a stop. As you're descending in, you do a final fuel balancing, and you want to get it pretty precise for the landing. But once in a while, and as you got more experience, you could, if there wasn't much wind, bring it to a stop, and it would sit with neither wing touching the ground.
No shit.
More often than not, though, when U2 comes to a stop, it'll just kind of settle down at one of the wings.
So it's not like you're still moving forward and the wing drops and drags. It's like you kind of come to it. You're damn near stopped, or are you stopped?
Yeah, and if it drags a little bit with those titanium skids, it's not going to do any damage. High speeds, it's a different story. But it's usually when it comes to a stop, because you've got roll control pretty late into the landing roll.
Okay.
Yeah. And how were the brakes on it? It looks like they weren't any better than the Harrier.
No, they were suitable, but again, weight savings. Everything is designed to save weight, and
Yeah. And then listener Colin,
make brakes.
And then listener Colin asks, what was the stall speed on that? on a light one?
It's been a while, but because we would figure fuel, it was below 100 knots. And it seemed like approach speeds, maybe the 90 to 100 knot range. But it's been a while, so I don't remember.
But still, below 100 knots for a big airplane like that, that's impressive. Yeah. Tells you how much lift that thing is generating.
Yeah, there's a lot of lift on those wings.
Okay.
How
Well, thanks for
about
that
escape
question,
system?
Colin. Yeah.
Escape system on that plane, did it have a regular ejection seat?
Not a regular ejection seat. The airplane built by the Lockheed Skunk Works. You're a heavier than normal package in the full spacesuit and all the gear you're wearing. So it was a specially designed, U2 ejection seat by Lockheed, and had a little more oomph in the motor launching you. And instead of a 28-foot canopy, it had a 32-foot canopy. For high altitude ejection, you stayed in the seat for quite a while. A whole sequence of different drogue chutes that separate you from the seat, and you'd fall face down for quite a while. But, it wasn't until you got down into the 20s and 15s that you're kind of becoming a normal package coming down.
Down in the thick air.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm learning all kinds of stuff tonight. Repeat.
Yeah, this is an amazing airplane. Designed in the 50s.
Yeah, 1955. They designed it. The Skunk Works was out of Burbank, right there at the Burbank Airport.
Yeah.
If you taxi in there, you see all the movie trailers parked. That's where the Skunk Works was building U-2s, SR-71s.
All the slide rules and number 2 pencils and
trying to blow up the city of Burbank with new fuels they were designing, but they actually Area 51 in Groom Lake, that area was discovered with the purpose of testing the U-2, and that's how Area 51 came into being. They said that's the spot. The lake bed is perfect out there, and they were flying in C-124s, I think, the initial U-2s out to Area 51 to test them. But 1955, Tony LeVere, who's kind of immortal the test world, went out for a high-speed taxi test in 1955 as they're getting the airplane online. And to his surprise, the high-speed taxi test turned into the first flight of the U-2. That was the first flight, and he was solo number 1. Yeah, I don't know.
Wow. That's crazy.
But it's been flying, ever since, and the real interesting history. They've released a lot of the information the CIA had on the early years of the program that were under wraps for a long time, and it's pretty eye-opening. Some of the Taiwanese involvement in the program and flying over mainland China. Lost a number of airplanes in that. But CIA.
So did we sell that airplane to other countries then?
No, we did have a couple other countries that we trained some pilots to fly it, and but we never exported the airplane.
Okay.
So
then, go ahead, Finn.
No, you go ahead. I lost my train of thought. Damn it.
I hate
know
when that happens. So no, I'm just So it still blows my mind that the SR-71 came behind it out of that same shop and was long ago retired, replaced by satellite technology. But they continue to use this airplane. I get it's an expensive airplane, and that's why you got T-38s to fly instead of going out and flying that to maintain proficiency. But so I guess the question is, we still have a couple active squadrons, or is it only the CIA?
Yeah, they're still flying.
Okay.
Still flying, and they're training new pilots. It's still at Beale Air Force Base in California.
Okay. So the last U-2 pilot hasn't been born yet.
Not well. We'll see. They have talked over the years of retiring the airplane. Back when I was at the Pentagon, there had been talk of that.
Okay.
The Global Hawk high altitude drone, which 36-hour duration. You don't put a pilot in harm's way. That was thought to maybe be the replacement for the U-2.
Okay.
But once it came online, it's like, no, we still need some of the capability the U-2 has. It goes a little higher, the mix of sensors that it carries. You can mix and match. Very quickly to put a new package on the airplane.
Sure. Now, is a lot of that automated? Do you, or are you fully aware as the pilot of everything that you've got on board and everything it's doing? You're activating the systems and
well, you know what systems are on board. Some of them require more input from you than others.
Okay.
There was a electro-optical camera, the Sires, that basically mounted in the nose, very high resolution electro-optical camera that, very precise, high resolution picture. You could take oblique pictures by rotating the nose of the airplane.
Okay.
So that now you're looking over there. That's, you're being data linked all over the world. It could be somebody, you're in Bosnia and somebody in DC wants to look over there. You'd be flying along and the nose of the airplane would just, you have no idea who's doing it. It's like somebody wants to look over there.
That's terrifying.
Something to look at over there.
Oh,
All right.
So, and you talk about that camera. I mean, could you read a license plate from up there with that thing, or?
Well, we did not have any ability to, see the imagery.
Not that you could see it, yeah. But I mean, is that the capability of that camera? You can.
It's pretty good. High resolution stuff is.
All right. Now, this is the more important issue. And I know the answer to this question because I've been to 50,000 feet. You have been much higher than that. So what would you say to our friends that are flat earthers?
Yeah, there you go.
Well, not being up in the space station, but being at high altitude and air breathers as high as you go. You can see on a clear day the curvature of the earth out there.
So there you go.
Nice.
And you might have a picture of a view from altitude, but the sky's not quite black up at the altitude we were flying. It's pretty close to black sky above you. Clear day, see the curvature of the earth. I think I sent you one picture up at altitude where
with the
down it.
Is that the one you sent me with the balloon in it?
Well, yeah, that was a different one, but yeah.
Okay.
That's a great picture too. There it is.
That is an amazing shot.
Yeah.
And I'll try. In fact, I'll put a tag here on the audio podcast. I will put this into the audio podcast. The shot out over his shoulder, looking at a balloon off the wing.
Balloon and the shadow of the airplane is on the balloon. It's awesome. It's perfectly timed.
Yeah.
He's got the sun. He's between the sun and the balloon, and it's perfect.
Yeah, was that not a Pulitzer?
Right?
Some award for
something there. Yeah, yeah.
That's cool.
That was. In fact, I'll even try and put it up here as we continue to talk a little bit more. So
well, I could just listen to his stories for all night, but we've been at this for an hour and a half, for crying out loud.
We've been at it for a while. We kind of need to land the plane.
I was thinking.
So yeah.
How you doing, Grease? Are you good?
Doing good. Yeah, enjoying it. Oh boy, talking airplanes.
Oh, it's easy, right?
Right. I mean, there's worse ways to spend a Friday night.
Yeah, that's the truth. Yeah. But, no, just to kind of wrap up the initial story of my career and being mentored to take the staff job, and the staff job won't kill you. Well, when I finished flying the U-2, I spent a year on Cyprus with it, and then they finally got me and put me in the Pentagon on the Joint Staff. I was the U-2 guy for J3. And it was interesting, and went through my time at the Pentagon. made the decision to retire from the Air Force.
So
while I was
it
there.
did kind of kill you
And,
a little bit.
yeah. Well, so I had done all the out processing, most of it, and so my retirement date was set for September 13th, 2001. I'm sorry, September, it was the 13th, Thursday.
Okay. They really did a little retention program about that time, didn't they?
Yeah.
So were you there? Were you in your office when the American?
Last week of my Air Force career, we came out of our morning meeting, and our office was in the NMCC, the National Military Command Center. Yeah, the command post for the Department of Defense. But we always had TVs on. Back then it was CNN just for breaking news, anything that's come up. But we came out of the morning meeting, and some guys were glued to the TV, and the first tower had been hit at that point. It's like, oh my goodness, everybody's trying to figure out what's going on. And while we were watching, the second tower was hit. And it's like, well, that was not an accident.
Yeah.
So we knew this is bad. And so I just got riveted to the TV, and then I realized I've got an out processing appointment, my little checklist I have to take to the different offices.
You have to run through all 5 wings and all 5 rings. So
they say you can get between any 2 points in that building in 10 minutes, and I had about 10 minutes to get to the opposite end of the building. So basically, we were on the opposite side from where the airplane hit the building. Okay. I went across through the center courtyard, up corridor 4 to the outer ring, up the stairs, and then to basically the end of that side of the building.
Mm-hmm.
In time for my out processing appointment. So I standing at the podium, and I had my checklist. She was about to sign it, and I don't remember hearing anything, but it was violent. Building shook. If you weren't hanging on to something, you were on the floor.
Wow.
And went back to my office, and so stuff you remember. Remember smoke filling the hallways, and some of the civil service. I remember one guy carrying 2 plants as he evacuated the building. One of the civil service guys. But I went all the way back to our office. They were watching TV just like I left them. They had no idea anything had happened.
Oh my gosh!
Oh wow!
Like, God, yeah. And
there could be more. 2 planes hit the towers.
Yeah,
wow.
Reports of explosion at the Pentagon. I said, something happened. And so, we evacuated the building. There was 25,000 people working at the Pentagon at the time, all standing outside the building when the Pennsylvania airplane got turned around. And that was coming back towards D.C. So there was suddenly a lot of guys in black jumpsuits running around telling everybody to take cover. So you got 25,000 people, trying to take cover on the outside of the building, which felt not nearly as safe as being inside the inside of the building. But again, some of the stuff you remember, there's a civilian who was hiding in a bush. I remember that. And it's like, sir, no, follow that Marine, do what he does.
The push ain't going to save you.
There's a difference between cover and concealment, and that's really the same thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So did they let you out?
So let's see. We were actually back in the office the next day, and I got a phone call, and they indicated they were going to stop loss me, to basically cancel my retirement the next day. And I'm like, okay. I kind of had mixed feelings at that point. I'm not sure I wanted to retire, but they called back a short time later, and our household goods had been picked up on their way to Kansas City, our first home, and it turns out there's actually a clause in the regulation that prohibited a stop loss for somebody who's basically
if your household goods, the household's goods saved you.
That is what saved me.
The goods are gone, so you're gone. Nice.
Sir, have a good retirement. And
well, thank you for your service, sir.
Outstanding.
Did you retire as an 06? 05. Okay. And how many years? 20 what?
Yeah, 20 and 3 months. They got 3 extra months out of me. So.
All right.
Thank you for your service.
All right.
That was a great career. Hey, how many hours did you get in the U-2?
It was, and U-2, I had a little over 1,000 hours in the U-2.
You got a
Divided by
lot
9.
of flight time in your career. Hold on,
Yeah.
let's see if my math adds up. Here. So there's 2,200.
I'm up in the 5,000 range.
2,200. There's 4,200. Yeah, there's over 5,200 hours, and that's not including your flight school time. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was 177 hours. I remember that.
That's pretty good. That's pretty darn good, sir. Well done, sir. Well done.
Nice. Indeed. Indeed.
It goes fast, I'll tell you. It
So.
went like the blink of an eye.
All right. Well, I think it's time we land this plane, and we're gonna ask people to come join us on SoThereWas.us/Patreon and find out how he got his call sign Grease and another story to be determined here shortly. But a couple other thank yous we need to throw out real quick. First of all, we need to thank Dave Hamilton. He's got his own shows, the Mac Geek Gab, the Gig Gab, and the Business Brain for entrepreneurs. He runs a little company called backbeatmedia.com, and they handle all our advertising. So thank you to Dave Hamilton and backbeatmedia.com. And our bandwidth is courtesy of CashFly. And thanks to our sponsor for the show, huh, Fig?
FTIratings.com.
Yep. Mention that you heard about FTI ratings from us at So There I Was, and you'll get $100 off of your course. So that's pretty cool. Thanks to them for supporting the show and giving you a discount, dear listener. So
We got to thanks to our newest division lead on Patreon, Dennis. I was trying to come up with the call sign real quick, but I can't. Dennis Connolly.
I'm thinking governor. Dennis Connolly, Governor Connolly.
Thanks to the Gov.
Not trying to get you shot or anything, Dennis. Just
Jeez.
some are old enough to get that reference, some are not.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Dennis. Nonetheless, so whether it's a good call sign or not, thank you for your support. We are always humbled. We have a glossary page. If we threw out some terms tonight that we didn't define, they may be in our glossary already. And if they're not, please let
us know.
Bullet. Governor Conley, the Gov. Sorry, I got sidetracked there. Let us know, and we'll sneak them in there for you.
Nice. Hey, listener Colin came up with Magic Bullet.
That was good.
Conley.
That was really good. Call sign Magic Bullet. Yes,
well played,
I
sir.
like that a lot. Wow. Well done. Well done.
Okay. So glossary page, and to tell us we've got something that needs to go on there, right to repeat at SoThereIwas.us, Fig at SoThereIwas.us, or Sticks at SoThereIwas.us. Sticks if you want a true answer to your question.
A good answer. A correct answer.
Right. Yeah. Hey, what else helps us, Fig, besides money?
Well, ratings. Give us a 5-star rating, and if you can't give us a 5-star rating, tell us why, because we are trainable. Are we not?
Right? We are indeed trainable, but we actually got a 5,000-star rating from Fall. Matt Geyer. Yeah. He says, as a non-aviator type that always loved history, military aircraft, the B-17 is still my favorite, than the FG-1 Corsair. And all things aviation, I find your show one of the most entertaining podcasts around, so I hope my contribution helps put gas in the tank to keep those stories coming. 5,000 stars. All right, folks. The gauntlet's been laid down. You've got to get there and give us 5,000 or more.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, indeed.
Thanks to Bago. Thank you, Bago, being in the background, being our producer there. We really appreciate you.
Huge
I'll
help.
buy you a cold adult beverage when I see you next week at the Cherry Point Air Show.
That's right. Yep. Fig and I are going to Cherry Point to see the last Level 3 demonstration flight of the AV-8B Harrier, and the Blue Angels are going to be there. So we're going to catch up in person with Lawman, hopefully Greyhound, Nightmare, see some old friends. So thanks to Styx, who helps out with so much, and of course, none other than Badass Brad Silcott at bdsaviationphotography.com.
Thanks, Badass.
So, yeah. And, I'm not hearing it. Do I have it wrong?
There it is.
Here it comes.
That sound.
I didn't push the button like I meant it.
It works. That sound you're hearing is nothing other than the two F-16 pilots that make the Air Force sound good, the Dos Gringos. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yep. Both of them.
There's not a bad song on any one of their 4 albums.
Nope. They're great stuff. So, all right. Well, with that being said, I think until next week, all we can say is stay safe and check 6.
Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day. Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we knew there was no way. 'Cause when you're going down the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
What?
He said it's over.
Oh boy, is this great!
See ya.